Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast. Today, we're talking Lapis Labyrinth, Persona Q2, Paper Mario, and Canadian poetry? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast, the podcast that's fluent in gaming. My name's Paul, and I'll be your host for today's show. And it's a very unexpected show. Originally, we were going to be talking about NBA Jam and other games of that style, but unfortunately, Ozzy had to call in sick. So my only guest host is Rhode Island's finest gaming podcaster by way of Puerto Rico, Arnaldo.
That's a very low bar, and I'm glad that I've cleared it.
Oh, dude, you went right over it. Fosbury flopped right over that thing. Do you know what the Fosbury flop is?
No, but it sounds hilarious.
It's the weird looking technique that Olympic high jumpers use to clear the bar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they used to like run at the bar and then just kind of jump head first, like they're diving into a pool, and somehow managed to invent a more ridiculous way of looking. Yeah, I know, some dude named, like, I don't know, John Fosbury or Greg Fosbury or whatever. And yeah, nice alliteration there, the Fosbury flop. So
yeah, for sure.
You flopped your way onto this show, my friend.
I absolutely did. It's the greatest flop of my career, if I could be so blunt.
And hey everyone, as always, if you enjoy the show, please tell one of your friends. We all have friends who are looking for new podcasts to listen to. I'm always looking for new podcasts to listen to. So if you're talking to one of your friends about podcasts, say, hey, I know these guys. One of them can't even be bothered to show up for his show. And don't forget to leave us a rating and a review on the Apple Podcasts app. 5 stars. Yeah. And if you've left one already, then thanks so much. And if you haven't, we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah. And let me just add, it's not limited to just your friends. For example, if you hate the show, you can share it with your enemies as well.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I'll take the hate listen. I'll take it. Yeah. Also, I have a dog. I'll tell my dog about the show.
I know. You should. Well, I hope that we have just as many pet listeners as we do human listeners. That would really make me happy.
Dude, you get nothing but 5 stars from dogs.
Absolutely.
Like, they're always like, yeah, buddy, great show.
But then you got to balance it out with the cat listeners who are like 3 stars average.
Yeah, on average. You'll never get higher than a 4, I don't think, from a cat.
Such judgment. Let me ask you this, Paul.
Go ahead, ask me, Arnie.
Let me ask you a quick question. Because we were going to originally talk sports, and we are now... How far are we? I think we're like 3 days removed from the Toronto Raptors winning the NBA championship. And I wanted to ask you this because I've been cursed with, and I say cursed in air quotes, with having family from New England, and so I'm forced to cheer for sports teams that win.
How sad for you.
I know, it really is, but the flip side of that coin is that generally everybody hates us. So I have not known what it's like to cheer for, I want to say like the feel-good team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The team that's sort of going up against the mega powerhouse. And, you know, I was rooting for the Raptors, throughout the NBA playoffs. And I just wanted to know, like, now that they've finally won, first time, you know, in franchise history, first time the NBA championship is going to somebody outside of the United States. Considering they're the only team outside of the United States, it makes it even more impressive. Like, how do you feel?
I don't even know what to do with myself, man. I don't even know. So, like, the other night, I was at a buddy's place watching. Okay, so let me rewind here. For Game 5, which was held in Toronto.
Yeah.
For Game 5, I low-key kind of expected they would win, right? Okay. They had all the momentum. So I went to the local bar here, and we watched Game 5, and it was a great experience, right? Mm-hmm. The problem, though, is that the Raptors lost this game that they were expected to win.
Yeah.
But the game itself was a classic, like drama from beginning to end. And for game 6, they were going to be playing in Oakland at Oracle. And I'm like, no fucking way the Raptors are winning this one, right?
Yeah.
So instead of going to the bar where I would be miserable with many people, I just went to my buddy's place so we could be miserable in private, right? and my wife was there, and, you know, we had lots of food and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we reached the point in the game where there was 0.9 seconds left, and the Raptors were inbounding the ball, and there was no way they could lose. It was wrapped up, like it was over, right?
Yeah.
For sure. And my buddy and his family, they were celebrating. Yeah, you know, awesome, blah, blah. Dude, Christy and I, my wife, we were sitting there fucking stone-faced. And my buddy's like, why aren't you guys celebrating? I'm like, you don't understand, dude. This is a Toronto sports team. We have grown up with nothing but the most crushing sports losses possible.
Yeah.
Even with 0.9 seconds, it is possible for the Toronto team to find a way to lose. I will not celebrate until it is dead certain.
Yeah.
And then they had that stupid referee reviewing thing going on for like oh my lord, that took
almost
forever.
As if to taunt you for like 5 minutes.
Exactly. And that's what it was, right? Because they knew the Toronto fans weren't really celebrating yet because we knew better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was horrible. But then afterwards they won, and like I devoured every piece of media that I possibly could, whether it was like the post-game press conferences, the views from the locker room, blogs, Twitter, articles. I just read everything or watched everything that I possibly could just because it felt so good. Like it was almost like I needed confirmation that it was real.
Yeah. And it's funny, you're not the only person from Canada who I've heard say something to that effect of just like, I had to make sure that, you know, I wasn't dreaming, or, you know, I couldn't believe it actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there is something to be said, like, even if you're not a big sports person, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I would think that a lot of the people that listen to the show are not necessarily huge into sports, but there's something to be said about the sort of hype and the ambiance that goes around like your city making a push like that, where you just sort of get swept up into that emotion. It's honestly a really cool experience, you know, to sort of be in that environment and just feel that sort of energy for a while.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, if you take a step back, you're watching dudes bounce a ball and then throw it into a hoop.
Correct.
How can that possibly have the level of importance and coverage that it does, right? It is a completely meaningless thing that's happening, except that these sports become a focal point for a community to come together and find something common to cheer for. And in that way, it performs a very important civic function, right? So it's weird, dude. Like, it's a complete, like, soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, wherever you're from.
Yeah.
It should be football. You Americans have, like, completely ruined that with your American football, where you don't actually kick it except for, you know, a few times a game.
Correct.
But anyway,
for the parts that matter the least, we kick it.
Yeah. So international football, like, it is literally people running around kicking a sphere on grass. Like, it is just the most, you know, meaningless thing, but it brings a lot of people together. And if enough people say this is important, then it is by definition important. Yeah. That's just how it goes. So anyway, big win for the Raps. I'm super thrilled.
Feel good moment. It was, you know, it was just cool to see something like that, especially because when you really think about it, outside of the context of just being, you know, like you said, just really good games, it's a historic moment. Like, you witnessed history in the making, not only in the franchise's first victory, but, you know, in the victory of a team outside of the United States, everything that they had to go through, you know, to get to that point. Like, the Raptors, I think, in what I think happens very little, they had simultaneously the most interesting / entertaining run to the championship and also won the championship. I think a lot of times you see like a team sort of gut and struggle, you know, through a bunch of series to get to that point only to come up short. I think very rarely you see that whole run where like the team that had the most difficult path and the most entertaining path sort of ultimately come out on top.
Yeah, it's not the most common situation, and it was a very unexpected win. It's very rare, especially in the NBA, which is very top heavy with talent.
Yeah.
It's very rare to see the unexpected team win. Like we've basically got like the 2011 Mavs and the 2004 Pistons, and like that's it. Every other team that's won other years has been a team that everybody expected. So it reminds me of the Premier League, although like the English Premier League football, like when Leicester City won a couple of years ago, I mean, that has to be the biggest shocker in sports history.
Yeah.
And you know, the Raptors, while not Leicester City, still very unexpected. And there's something special about that when, you know, just something weird happens.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was the Toronto Raptors. So, you know, good on them.
Yeah. And I mean, this is not to say that, you know, people on other teams are undeserving or, you know, like, I'm not trying to imply anything negative with this, but also there's just a collection of people on that team that I'm happy to see win a championship. You know what I mean? Like, Jeremy Lin is on the Toronto Raptors and is now a NBA champion, which just makes me happy.
Oh, dude, every Asian on the internet was very happy to tell me that Jeremy Lin is an NBA champion.
Exactly.
I have a buddy in Toronto who's a comedian.
Yeah. And
he's an Asian dude. And like, what, 2 seconds after they won, he was immediately on Facebook, Jeremy Lin!
Which is great. I mean, he probably played like 15 minutes in the entirety of the finals or something. But
yeah, I know.
It's just hilarious. And it's great.
Yeah. I mean, look, these guys who don't see that much of the floor, they show up to practice every day.
Yeah.
Right? They play against the A team, and they are integral members of the team. Even if they're playing garbage minutes. Yep. They're still integral. So, hey, good for Jeremy Lin, man. I'm sure, I'm not going to say he didn't contribute anything. I'm sure he contributed something. Yeah. But anyway, we gotta get off the Raptors. We will. Or else we're just not going to shut up about it.
But that is true. So to close things out, I did prepare something for you, Paul. So if you'd allow me.
Oh, of course.
I would like to read an excerpt from a lauded Canadian poet that I believe is very fitting for this Raptors win. The poet's name is Aubrey Graham. Though he's often known by his pen name Jimmy Brooks. So this is a quick reading. It says, boys tell stories about the man. Say I never struggled, wasn't hungry. Yeah, I doubt it. I could turn your boy into the man. There ain't really much out here that pop enough without us. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team's fucking here.
Yeah, man. I wear every single chain, even when I'm in the house.
That was, I thought that was fitting for this team. So that's how I wanted to close out this segment. I was originally planning that for the episode, but I was like, I still have to do it.
Sure. Well, you can do it. You can do it again, or find a different Aubrey Graham song.
I don't think Ozzy would appreciate it as much as you have.
No, I mean, I think he would appreciate it enough, though. Yeah.
But no. So tell us, Paul, what is it that we're actually going to be talking about this episode?
I know, right? I should have mentioned it right at the top of the show so people aren't left hanging. Although we'll put it in the episode title. So I mean, like, if you can't read the title when you're downloading the podcast, you know, hey, at least you're being surprised, and everybody loves surprises. But yeah, since Ozzy's not here today, you and we were just like, fuck it. Let's just do a show and talk about what we've been playing lately. Yeah. And we've also got E3, right? Last year we did an episode on E3 that was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But this year we decided not to, just because of scheduling. Yeah. We had a lot of stuff going on around the time of E3. So like the Genesis Mini, for example, like we don't do very many like current topics. So we had either the Genesis Mini or E3. Because if we released the E3 episode, it would have been like over a month after, and by then it's stale, right? Yeah. So, you know, we've got the Genesis Mini episode that we just released. shortly after the Mini, and that was the one we chose to go with because we just love talking Genesis Mega Drive.
We do.
Honestly.
And I think it caps off a little trilogy of Sega focused episodes that we had, because we had Phantasy Star, then we did Technosoft, and now we're doing the Genesis Mini. So I think that's a little sort of package that people will enjoy.
Yeah, we have no sense of pace, do we?
We do not.
No, last year it was all Sony Nintendo.
Yep.
And we weren't even actively thinking like, hey, we really need to do a Sega episode. It was just kind of like, hey, I want to talk about Phantasy Star. Hey, I want to talk about Technosoft. Hey, the Genesis Mini's coming out. And then bang, 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 you've got this Sega-centric 2 months that came along that I personally had a ton of fun with. But
I had a blast with it. And for people who are listening, new and old, I think to get a peek behind the curtain, we've said this before. I think that people sometimes think that there is like a very organized method to this madness. And I'm not saying there isn't. Like, we do work for these episodes, but in terms of deciding what we're going to talk about, it's very much like, what do you feel like talking about this week?
Yeah. I mean, we'll come up with ideas maybe like a month in advance or 6 weeks in advance.
Yeah.
But with that said, there are almost as many episodes where we just come up with something the week before.
Yeah.
And we do a bunch of research for it. Or like today, we're just gonna riff, right?
Yeah.
Which is also a lot of fun, which we should probably get to. I'm thinking.
I agree.
Arnie, tell me, what have you been playing lately?
So it's been basically this one giant thing, but I do have a couple other things I want to talk about. But I very recently finished Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door.
Nice.
Which is the sequel to the original Paper Mario on the N64. This one's on the Gamecube. This is one, so the story of how I sort of did this was, I've been wanting to play this game forever, because I had played the original Paper Mario when I was younger, and then when I got a little bit older and I got into collecting, I reacquired it, and I beat it, and I loved it. Like, Paper Mario, to me, is probably, undoubtedly top 5 Nintendo 64 games. It's probably my favorite N64 game, period.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very much like, I don't know, it's interesting because there is some depth to that game, but I feel like if you're young and you want to get into RPGs, like, that's a good starting point, I think, because it's not like combat wise and mechanics wise, there is some tinkering to be done, but it doesn't get overwhelming. It's not like you have to deal with equipment and magic and, stat boosting and all that stuff. It's very straightforward. Like, when you level up, you pick one of 3 things you want to boost, either your health, your MP, or your badge points. And then you can equip up, like, depending on how many badge points you have, you can equip badges that do different things, but they don't really mess with stats because there are no stats outside of, health and magic. They just let you do, like, different moves, or give you different advantages in battle and stuff like that. So it's very laid out for people. And so I'd always wanted to play Thousand Year Door because everybody always said, like, that's the best game in the series. It's better than the original. And, it's funny. The writing is great. It's a nice, like, compact sort of RPG experience. But I had never been able to find it for, like, a reasonable price. And the more I waited, like a lot of people, the more expensive video games got.
Yep.
So I was just like, man, I've never been able to find this. And I can't remember exactly how this happened, but friend of the podcast and all-around good guy, Mr. Game and Brews, actually reached out to me on Instagram. And he told me, I have a copy of it. Do you want me to mail it to you so you can play it? Like, just lend it to you.
Holy shit, dude. Sorry to interrupt, but because I saw that you mentioned this on Instagram, and I thought he just lived in your town or something.
No. He doesn't live super far from where I am. It's like a few hours. But he was like, if you want, I'll just mail it to you for you to play. And I was like, whoa, like, if you'd be willing to do that, like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. Like, I'll pay the return shipping on it. Like, if you want me to pay your shipping to mail it to me, like, I can do that. And he was like, no, don't worry about it. Just mail it back to me when you're done. So he did, like, immediately afterwards, he mailed it to me. I got it. I played the hell out of it. And I loved it. You know, it was really good. And now I'm sort of stuck. And I want to know if this has ever happened to you, but I'm sort of stuck now because I played the game and I really, really enjoyed it, but I can't decide if I like it more than the original. And my problem now is I'm like, do I think I like it more because people have hyped it up so much and I think like I should like it more? Or do I just genuinely think it's a better game?
I'll tell you this much. If it was a shitty game, you'd know.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no amount of hype that can keep you from being like, ooh, this is not good at all, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's happened to me, right? Like, I've had people recommend a game, and then I get it, and I'm like, yikes.
Yeah.
So if it was not good, you'd know. As far as whether it's better than you think it is, or you think it's better than it is, because of the amount of hype, you know what, man? The way I look at it is if the game lives up to the hype, then that just makes it even better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when a game gets really hyped up like that and you play it, there is a certain expectation and it's easy to become disappointed.
Well, that's what I was kind of expecting. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, conversely, it's also awesome when you get a game that you've never heard of and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like those pleasant surprises are top of the food chain as far as gaming experiences go, as far as I'm concerned. But there is something to be said for being hyped for a game, getting it, and then it being even better than you expected. Like, I don't think there's anything. If that's what's happened with you, I think that's fine. I think it's actually that good.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, like, that's what I was concerned about when I first got it was, you know, it's been hyped up so much. People have been saying, like, it's amazing, it's incredible, it's one of the best, like, Gamecube games. And so when I was playing it, I was like, you know, I think I'm going to enjoy it, but I think ultimately I'm going to be a little disappointed because, like you said, like, sometimes people hype things up to a level where it's just impossible not to be a little disappointed. Because when somebody tells you, like, this is one of the greatest blah, blah, blah game, whatever superlatives you want to use to make it seem like this game is going to be great, if it's ultimately you play it and it's not life-changing, then it's going to be a little disappointing. And I think the risk is greater when you're going back to play older games because subconsciously you're comparing them to newer games. Like, regardless of whether you think you are or not, I think it's natural to think, you know, I've seen this before. Like, the novelty of seeing something for the first time isn't there if you've already played something that came after that does it. But ultimately, I would say this is a really good game. If I'm trying to be objective, like, mechanically and story-wise, I would say, yeah, this is the best Paper Mario game I've played so far. It definitely lives up to the hype, and I think even if you're not a huge RPG person, you can really enjoy this game. Because, like I said, the RPG mechanics overall are pretty light. Like, obviously, I keep saying obviously, I hate that. I do that all the time.
I'm gonna compile a supercut of you saying obviously followed by the statement, and it's going to be like 10 minutes long. It's going to be hilarious.
Longer than an episode. But what I was going to say is the RPG elements are fairly light, so there's nothing that you really need to commit to in terms of sort of customizing badges and characters and whatnot. You can play this game pretty straightforward and not really run into too much trouble. But it also has, you know, little quirks. Like, it has the timing system that's big with Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi series, where your attacks have timing things where if you execute them right, you do extra damage or you get to do cool things. And, you know, the thing that really holds this entire thing up is the story. Like, if you're playing it, it's probably going to be for the story. The characters are super endearing. And the story overall is just really funny. Like, the writing in this game is really good, what I found. And it's weird because I generally don't... Like, when video game stuff is funny, quote unquote, I don't really find it that funny.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, it's not
often, like... It's often shoehorned in.
Yeah.
And it's trying to be funny. I get it, man. I mean, look, it's like regular comedy on TV, right? There are some comedy shows where you're like, what are these people doing? I get it. Nobody can bat 1,000.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But this game overall, I thought had some really witty dialogue and some really like fun character moments that make it just a really fun experience for anybody to play. Like whether you're into RPGs, whether you are in, I feel like you either have to be into RPGs or you have to be into Mario. Like one of those things has to kind of hook you. But if you're into one or the other, like this is one of the better games you can play by far.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Like, is it comparable? Because I've never played a Paper Mario game. Mm-hmm. Is it comparable to? I heard you mention the Mario and Luigi series on the DS and the 3DS. Mm. Is it comparable to that? Because I've played Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, not for long. Like the 3DS that I got it used, and it had that game built in.
Oh, nice.
So I was just like, oh, what's this about? And then I loaded it up and played it for about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know if it's comparable?
It is, in the sense that, so this is getting into a little bit of background. And the other thing I was going to say is this is an Intelligent Systems game series, so I'm sure that you and me will sit down at one point and make a really rambling episode about it.
Oh, my ears just perked right up when you said Intelligent Systems.
Yeah. But so basically from what I understand is that when they made Super Mario RPG, they wanted to do a follow-up, and the original working title for Paper Mario on the N64 was Super Mario RPG 2, but it came out as Paper Mario, and there was sort of a splinter where from Super Mario RPG originated Paper Mario and the Mario and Luigi series. So those are two divergent series that sort of come from the same well. So there are similarities, like the battle mechanic stuff with the timing and everything, that's the same. The big difference, I think, is that in the Mario and Luigi games, you only play as Mario and Luigi. In Paper Mario, Mario usually has a group of sidekicks, and you can choose which one you want to have in battle. And they each have like their own unique moves and, abilities. And you can also use those abilities outside of combat to like solve puzzles and things like that.
Okay.
So I would say of the two, personally, I find Mario and Luigi to be a little bit heavier on the RPG elements, because like you can equip like weapons and items and armor to Mario and Luigi, if I'm remembering correctly. Whereas in this one, it's just like one thing that lets you customize like abilities and loadouts and stuff like that. So I would say they're comparable in my mind, but Mario and Luigi is a little bit more technical. Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
That's actually almost what I wanted to hear, really, because I have Bowser's Inside Story.
Yeah.
And I would like to play it eventually, because it's like you said, for the 45 minutes that I played, it was absolutely charming.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely charming. The writing was very whimsical. It just felt it was very lighthearted. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was like sitting down for lunch and having a delicious salad, instead of like
a greasy burger.
Yeah, exactly. You don't expect the salad to be that good, mm-hmm. and it is, and it's just kind of light and it's nice. And
yeah.
I don't know what compelled me to compare a video game to food, but here we are.
Well, I've also played Bowser's Inside Story, and I really enjoyed it. That, I think, has been my favorite of the Mario and Luigi's I've played.
Cool.
So that one's also really good.
And in Paper Mario, you said there are sidekicks. Is it like Toad and other people that we know, or is it?
They're all original characters. For each game.
See, that can be good and bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they do a good job of sort of building up the characters. Like, you get to see their things they do and say, and they get personalities. So, like, they're not necessarily just stock generic characters that you slide in and out of your party, though you'll have favorites. Like, you'll have ones that you use more than other ones, for sure. But the game is good about sort of not like kind of forcing you to use them in certain situations. Like, some partner abilities are just better against specific types of enemies than others are. Like, some partners can't hit enemies that are up in the air. Some partners can't don't have attacks that hit all enemies unless you upgrade them or something like that. So depending on the battles that you're in, you'll find different uses for different partners.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really good. Yeah. I actually just stumbled into Paper Mario for the GameCube myself.
I know.
And yeah, I was like, it was one of I got a few games. I told you about it earlier.
Yeah.
And Paper Mario happened to be one of them, and it was probably the one, top 3 that I was most hyped for, because I'd never tried it before, and anything you haven't tried before, and it gets kind of, it gets hyped, and you want to play it because it's a new experience. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it, and that it's kind of like, light and fun. I find now that as I'm getting older, I just kind of want to play stuff that's light and fun and challenging. I do like my challenges, but like there's a time for Solid Snake.
Yeah.
And I desired more of that when I was younger, and now it's just like I just want cartoons and shit,
Yeah. And probably like now that you've mentioned like you're thinking about playing it as an important factor to you, my playthrough clocked in at like 38 hours, and I wasted a good amount of time just like wandering and trying to find stuff.
Ooh, so I love hearing that.
It's a pretty lean RPG, like time-wise. There's a little bit of challenge like in the boss fights and stuff like that, but if you're an experienced RPG player, there shouldn't be anything that causes you like too much trouble. But yeah, it's a pretty lean experience, so it's not like you're not committing to a 100-hour RPG with any of the Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi games. Usually I think about 30 to 40 hours is normal.
Yeah. No, that sounds like it's right up my alley. I'm looking forward to it. But before we get to your next game, let's take a quick break because we've been about half an hour.
Yeah.
And when we come back, you'll tell me what else you've been playing, and then we'll get to me.
Sweet.
And we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. I wear every single chain, even when I'm in the house. Cause we started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started.
All right, and we're back. So Arnie, besides Paper Mario, what else have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing 2 other things, and they're pretty quick hits. The first, I just want to mention, because I haven't really been able to dig into it because I've been playing Paper Mario, but I wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about Persona Q2.
Oh yeah, awesome! I haven't opened mine yet.
Oh my god!
But please tell me.
I barely played it. Like I don't think I even have an hour into it. So there won't be a lot to talk about, but we got to mention it.
Sure.
It came out fairly recently. I caved like 5 days before release and got the collector's edition.
I can't believe you waited that long.
Well, here's the thing is I convinced myself, I was like, I'm not going to do it because I don't have the money right now. Or not that I didn't have the money, but I was like, I don't want to spend the money right now. Yeah. I'll be able to find it later, blah, blah, blah. And then the closer it got and the more people were talking about it, the more hyped I got. And, in reality, I was just like, this is going to be one of the last games that's going to come out for the 3DS. At least like a major release, not like a limited run thing or something like that. And it's going to be a Persona game. You know that print's going to be low. It's going to be a pain in the ass to find this later on down the road.
There was no way you were ever going to find this for cheaper or at MSRP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it would have been, resellers on eBay or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I say that and I had a negative tone of voice. I don't begrudge people who resell, like, go nuts, right?
Yeah.
We all have a choice to just not buy it. But with that said, yeah, dude, I'm glad you got it when you did, because otherwise that was going to be a giant pain in the ass for you to find it.
And here's the thing, this is going to sound really stupid, but when I finally decided to go get it, it was supposed to be $70, but Amazon had it for $65, and I was like, that's how paper thin my like will to do things is. That as soon as I saw like $5 discount, I was like, well, that covers tax, so like, let's go.
You do realize you sound like my old Portuguese father. Remember when I told you about the Super Contra? Yeah. And Super Contra was 65 and he said, no, $60 only, and I got Cobra Triangle? That is who you are. You are my old Portuguese father. Congratulations.
This is who I've become in my quest to like try to not spend a ton of money on these games. But this is really like, it's funny. I do really well in generally not, sort of buying games right at release unless I really want to play it and support,
for sure,
or getting like a ton of collector's editions, and I don't blame people who do that. Like, it's really cool shit. If I had all the money in the world, like, I would buy every single one, but it adds up so quickly. And a lot of these things, like, realistically, I don't use what's inside the boxes a lot of the times, unless it's like a soundtrack or something, then I'd listen to. But like stickers, art books, pins, it's whatever. But I really like this series, so I was just like, I'm going to support them. I'm going to just do it. I got it the day of release. It was very well packaged by Amazon in that it was just in a box with no bubble wrap or anything.
They drive me crazy, dude. You know how much stuff I get from them that's in like a bubble wrap envelope, and it's like a cardboard box, and I'm like, you guys are killing me. you guys are absolutely killing me. Anyway, sorry, please continue.
But yeah, so I got it. I popped it in for a while. I played through the little bit of the intro, and I absolutely love it. Like, obviously, that's me talking about like 25 minutes worth of game. But everything from like the intro music to the chibi characters to just seeing all these characters again, I'm into it. I'm not a huge. I know you are a huge Etrian Odyssey fan.
Yeah.
But when I played Persona Q, I really enjoyed like the map making and all that stuff. So as long as mechanically they haven't changed too much, I can't see myself not enjoying this, because it's 3 games, 2 of which I love, and 1 of which I like but still need to finish, which is Persona 3, just in a different shell, and I like just being able to see those characters again and follow them on another adventure. It's very hard, and I think that this is something that we see a lot in games, but I feel like when you become a really big fan of something, they don't really have to do too much to like get you in the door, right? Like, I feel like a lot of those changes are really to attract new people a lot of the time. Because for me, it's just like any excuse to just play with these characters again.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to seeing Morgana again. I'm looking forward to seeing Ryuji again. Like even the Persona 3 characters that I wasn't, because I haven't played Persona 3, but I did play Persona Q, which had P3 characters in it. I'm looking forward to seeing them again. Yeah. Korumaru, man. I'm looking forward to seeing my little dog friend, Korumaru.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I hope they haven't changed, like you said, I hope they haven't changed anything about the battle mechanics.
Yeah.
Because that was the triumph of Persona Q. Mm-hmm. It was actually 2 things. One was the battle music. Yeah. Which arguably my favorite random battle music ever. Like, that tune in Persona Q was just fantastic. And the battle mechanics themselves, like, oh my god, what a great idea. Like, the fact that you had, like, the way it works, for those of you who haven't played it, is most RPGs, you press attack, you press attack, you press attack when you're doing random battles. But what Persona Q does is it gives you a limited amount of, we'll just call it magic, that gets replenished at the end of a battle. And then if you go over that allotted amount, then it doesn't get replenished. Mm-hmm. So what it does is it allows you in the random battles to just use magic all the friggin' time, or use techniques all the time. And it makes the battle so much more interesting than just spamming attack. Yeah. And then at the end of the fight, you get those magic points back up to a certain amount, and you can just rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. And it is so good. I can't believe other series haven't done it. Like Etrian Odyssey kind of does something like that, but what they do is they give you characters who have MP or EP in Etrian Odyssey, whatever, magic replenishing abilities.
Okay.
So you can potentially have like, magic perpetually replenished, and you can use more interesting techniques.
Yeah.
But even Etrian Odyssey, the implementation was never as good as it was in Persona Q. I really hope they have that again in Persona Q too.
Yeah. And, I will say that I found interesting, and I can't recall if this was the same in Persona Q, but all the voices default, at least. I haven't messed around to see if you can change this. I don't think you can, but all the voices default to Japanese.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know if there's an English voice track for this game. I have to look around to see if I can find something. But when I powered it on, it was all in Japanese, which caught me a little bit by surprise, because I was like, part of the excitement of wanting to see these characters again was wanting to hear the voices again.
For sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So I'd be a little sad if you couldn't listen to it in English, but overall, it's not going to ruin my enjoyment of the experience. But at a later point, we will definitely rehash this conversation once we've both played a good amount of this game.
Yes, once we've sunk our teeth into it.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised if it doesn't have English voices. I think if this game was released 2 years ago, then maybe the production budget or localization budget is a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. But the same thing happened with Etrian Odyssey Nexus, released in February. Every Etrian Odyssey game up to Nexus had English voices. Mm-hmm. But Nexus, they just had the Japanese voices with the subtitles, obviously.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is, right? It's a late gen game, so they're going to sell fewer units. People are less interested.
Yeah. And
that's just kind of how it goes. Like, you know what? I'm just happy we got it.
Absolutely. And I think, the other point could potentially be made is they're doing P5R as well. They're doing Persona 5 Scramble. So, they might be using English voices in those other projects as well. Maybe this didn't get priority.
Maybe. Yeah, that might very well be the case.
And then the last thing... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, before you get to the last thing, what's Persona 5 Scramble? I haven't heard of this.
Oh, Persona 5 Scramble is... I think it's called Scramble. You make me doubt everything I say on the show. But it's basically... There was an announcement for this thing called P5S, and people were speculating for a long time that it was going to be a Persona 5 Switch port. And what it ended up being when they showed the trailer is a Mosu game. So it's a Persona 5 Mosu game. Kind of like, what's it called? Dragon Warriors Heroes? Is that what it's called?
Oh, I thought if it's a Musou game, it'd be more like Fire Emblem Warriors.
That's what it is. Fire Emblem Warriors and Hyrule Warriors. Kind of like that. And people were disappointed.
Okay. Yeah.
I honestly, here's the thing, is I understand the want for a Persona 5 on the Switch. I think there should be a Persona 5 on the Switch. I think you're going to get it after P5R releases on PlayStation 4. That's what I would expect, is maybe at some point they'll port P5R to the Switch. I kind of like the Mosu idea because it's something that Persona hasn't done before. So maybe it'll be, interesting to sort of see that again. I want to see more of what's gonna be in it, in the end, because the thing that I'm worried about with Mosu games is I feel like Mosu games usually have big casts of characters, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, can this just be a Persona 5 game, or are they going to have Persona 4, Persona 3 characters in there as well to sort of flesh out the roster? Because I feel like there's not enough, unless they're using social link characters and stuff like that, which would be really weird. But if they don't do that, I don't know that you can just have a Mosu game that just has the characters from Persona 5. I don't think there's enough of them.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I guess we'll have to wait and see. That's kind of the easy answer here.
Yeah.
For me, the Musou game is just kind of the gameplay is just kind of played out. I'm kind of done with the fighting, 500 enemies at once and just watching them all fall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of over that. So I don't know. Maybe, look, I mean, I don't want to be negative. Hopefully they'll be able to put a new spin on it somehow. And as far as characters are concerned, Persona 5 would be the most interesting set of characters probably that they've ever had in a Musou game. I mean, we can talk about Fire Emblem, but the fact of the matter is Persona characters are so much more deep and well fleshed out than virtually any other game, any other series, right? Yeah. So by default, they'll probably have the most interesting characters we've ever seen in that kind of game. But the gameplay, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. So
anyhow, sorry, I interrupted you with that question.
No, that's fine.
What else were you looking at?
Hopefully, everything I just told you is not completely incorrect, but I don't think I could have made up something so detailed in my mind.
No, I don't think so either. And you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, I'm happy that I'm not really excited about it.
Yeah.
If I was excited about it, especially with all the shit that got announced at E3,
oh yeah,
my wallet would be like, dude, like, what
Stop,
are you doing?
Please.
Yeah.
But the last thing, real quick, once I finished, I'm a very simple man, Paul. So once I finished Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door, there's only one place you could go after that. Super Paper Mario on the Wii.
Of course.
Which I'd actually had for a pretty long time. I think I've had it over a year at this point. But for some reason, even though none of the Paper Mario games are connected in any way, so you can play any of them in any order you want, I was like, I don't want to play this game until I've played the GameCube game. And I have no explanation for it. That's just how my brain was working at the time.
That's not unreasonable. Yeah. I feel the same way.
So I finally jumped into it. There were some people on Instagram who told me, like it's pretty good. There seems to be sort of following 1,000 Year Door, the fandom of Paper Mario seems to get more and more divided with each successive game in the series. Because there's this one, then there's Sticker Star on the 3DS, which people apparently do not like at all. And then there's Color Splash on the Wii U, which some people seem to like and a bunch of people seem to really not like. So I don't know. This seems to be the last one where I feel like a majority of people were like, it's good. But so far I think I've played like 6 or 7 hours. And okay. I'm enjoying it. There's some changes in the game that, like, it's very different from original Paper Mario and 1,000 Year Door in that there's really no more. I would say there's even less RPG stuff in there now. Like, there's no leveling. There is leveling up, but you don't even choose what levels up. You just, like, your health increases when you level up. That's it. You don't have any magic anymore. You don't equip stuff anymore, and you don't really, like, when you had battles in Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door, when you run into an enemy, you sort of go onto like a stage, and then it's like a turn-based sort of thing back and forth. This is just like you jump on enemies. It's like you're just in the overworld at all times, and you jump on enemies to damage them and kill them. So the stronger an enemy is, the more times you have to jump on them to destroy them, and then they attack you and stuff like that. And then the other mechanic is you have partners, but they're called pixels, and each pixel does a different thing. So there's like a grabby pixel, there's like a bomb pixel, there's a pixel that turns you in sideways because you're paper, so it turns you like invisible, so you can't be hurt if you're not moving. Yeah,
that's clever.
Yeah, they do stuff like that all the time, which I really like. But I think the bigger mechanic is you don't just play as Mario. There's 4 characters. I haven't unlocked them, so I don't know who they are. I've unlocked the second one, which is Peach, so you can play as Peach as well, and you sort of switch between them to do different puzzles, because each character has their own unique ability. So Mario's ability is that he can turn from 2D to 3D, like the whole world. Basically, like, you can be in 2D and maybe you run into a wall and you can't proceed, but you press a button and it turns the world sideways into like a 3D view, and now the wall just takes up like one section of the road so you can go behind it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's like that's the big mechanic in that. Like, how you, like, whenever you're stuck, it just says, if you're ever stuck, just flip all the time, because you never know what you're gonna find. And you can do it anywhere, which is really interesting because that's how they hide secrets and little extra dungeons and stuff like that. But then Peach's ability is she has a float jump, so it's very Super Mario Brothers 2, where she like sort of descends very slowly.
Yeah, bringing it back.
Yeah, and I think this is just my guess, but I think the other two characters are maybe Luigi and Bowser, but I don't know what their abilities are. But it's fun. I mean, it retains that sort of lightheartedness. The story's a little bit darker in this one because it's more end of the world stuff, but even the villains are still, just ridiculous and funny. But we'll see. I still haven't played enough of it to sort of make a judgment call on it. The way they've changed things around turned me off a little bit at first, but I've gotten used to it and I'm enjoying it. So
cool, man.
Yeah.
Right on.
So what about you, Paul? Tell me everything.
Well, tell you everything.
Tell me everything.
I'll stick to the video games. Probably the most notable thing that I've been playing lately is Lapis Labyrinth.
I've never heard of this. Switch. What is this?
I don't even, you know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. I probably should have looked it up beforehand because, like, when I went to EB Games to buy it, first of all, they didn't have it on their system, which was a little bit odd.
Okay.
But even pronouncing it, I just had to like pull it up on my phone and say this game.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, is it? But I'm pretty sure it's Lapis Labyrinth. So
okay.
Lapis.
Okay.
And then Labyrinth.
Yeah. That sounds, and phonetically, that's probably how I'd pronounce it.
I think so too. Anyway, you can make fun of me afterwards if I'm wrong. Released developed by Nippon Ichi Software.
Good old Nisa.
So, exactly, the great people behind the Disgaea games, the Prinny games, and some other, not so great games, but they do. I could take or leave Criminal Girls, for example.
Yeah.
But they have a nice, they've got a nice little catalog there. And this game is a side-scrolling action. I don't want to call it a roguelike because they do reuse a lot of the level designs. It's not randomly generated.
Yeah.
But that's basically what I would call it. It's a side-scrolling action borderline roguelike.
Okay.
So the way it works mechanically is that you form a party of 4 characters. You can pick from 8 different character classes. And you form a party of 4. And one of the characters is the leader, and that's who you mainly attack with. And then the other characters are stacked on top of the leader's head.
I think, and so, you know what? Now that you say that, I think I saw like a screenshot of this or something. I didn't know what it was called, but it looks really weird.
Yeah, it is really weird. And I remember when I saw the trailer and stuff like that, I was like, it looks like it's going to scratch where I itch. and so I picked it up, right? Because, I love Dead Cells. Yeah. I love those kind of like side scrolling. I love action, dude. Like I want action. And Lapis Labyrinth, it's there's like a lot of loot that you get and so on. So, loot, action. All right, sign me up. So anyway, you stack the other characters on top of the leader's head, and then your stack does different things depending on what order the characters are stacked and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And every level is self-contained. You can, when I say side-scrolling, you're actually mostly exploring vertically, jumping onto platforms with a little bit of side-to-side exploring as well. You've got 5 minutes to complete a level. And if you don't complete the level in 5 minutes, a giant, like, monster apparition appears, and if you touch it, you die.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So, again, like, you can tell why I like this game, because as soon as there's a time limit, it creates tension.
Yeah.
And I love tension in these games, right? So, you basically go through the level, and as long as you don't get hit, your combo meter kind of goes up, and you get more and more points, you get more and more treasure, based on whether you can keep your combo going. And then at the end of those 5 minutes, or if you do that, if you finish it in less than 5 minutes, you either move on to the next level or you fight a boss.
Okay.
It really depends on how far you are into the game, right? Like the further you get into, it's like Super Mario Brothers, right? You have like World 1, Stage 2.
Yeah.
So in Lapis Labyrinth, you'll have World 1, Stage 1, which is just one level and then a boss.
Okay.
But once you get to World 1, Stage 5, then you have 2 levels or 3 levels and a boss.
Okay.
And then eventually you beat like the final boss and you move on to World 2.
Gotcha. So does the roguelike element come in where when you die, like let's say you're in World 1, I don't know, 4, and you die, do I then have to start again from World 1-1?
No, you start from World 1-4.
Okay.
The roguelike element comes in the fact that your characters start from level 1 every time you start a new run.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
But the further you are in the game, but you keep all the items that you get as you go through the game. You never lose the items, except if you lose on a particular run. So as you go through the game, even though your characters start on level 1, you'll have more and more powerful items.
Yeah.
So you're able to keep up with the enemies.
Okay.
And the enemies, as you get later into the game, of course, give you more XP, so you level up faster and you're able to better keep up with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So mechanically, it's pretty solid. It can be a little bit repetitive, but the action is intense. So, like, I find that I don't get tired of it just because even though you're spamming one button often, you're still jumping around and dodging and doing all that fun stuff that, for me, never gets old.
Yeah.
And the music's really good. The visuals are really like what sets it apart. Because you may have seen screenshots. I encourage you to see a video of it.
Okay.
The visuals are fucking bonkers, dude. There is so much color and there is so much stuff going on the screen at one time. It's actually a bit overwhelming at first. I'm like, the first time I popped it in and played, I was like, what in the fuck is going on here, right? Because like your HUD has the HUD is a little bit messed up. Like there's a whole bunch of different stuff on the HUD. So it's kind of hard to keep track of it all. But, you know, if you stick with it for an hour, you'll get used to it.
Yeah. And
then you'll just kind of enjoy all the crazy shit that's going on the screen.
This is really colorful. I'm not watching a video. I'm just watching like different screenshots. It's super colorful.
Yeah, really colorful.
Isn't that just a tragedy of like that time in gaming where everything was like black and gray and brown, that now we're like, oh my god, there's too many colors on the screen?
I couldn't be happier. I really couldn't. Like, I love, you know, super colorful, poppy kind of graphics, right? Like, this is one of the reasons why Persona 5 works so well.
Yeah.
Right? It's one of the reasons why I'm still playing Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is one of the most colorful games I've ever played, and that's a big reason why I'm enjoying it. It's just bright and poppy, and it puts you in a good mood, you know what I mean? And Lapis Labyrinth is a lot like that. It's very colorful, and once you go into fever mode, which is a mode that happens when you kill a whole bunch of enemies after a while, then all the enemies drop these colorful gems, and they drop dozens and dozens of them, and the screen just fills with gems. And you might be wondering, well, how do you play the game if the screen is filled with gems and so on? Fever mode makes your party invincible.
Oh, hell yeah.
For a limited time. It's like 30 seconds, and you just get insane loot, insane treasure. The music is like really fast and poppy again. I'm using that word a lot. But it doesn't, so like, even though the screen is filled with stuff and you have a hard time seeing what's going on, it doesn't matter because your party's invincible. So you can just fire indiscriminately at everything. Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's pretty fun.
I mean, honestly, it really, like what you just described makes perfect sense to me, because it's the Power Star from Mario. Yeah. Like the sort of short burst of invincibility with like insane music and nice special effects has never gotten tired. You know what I mean? No. Like just that. Especially in a game like this, where I feel like you said, there's always tension because of the time limit and stuff like that. Like, to have that sort of release of tension, even for 30 seconds, is probably life altering in that moment where you're like, oh my god, now I can just do whatever I want for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And you know your combo's not going to get killed too. Yeah. Because you can just get hit and it doesn't matter. So it's a very fun little game mechanic. If I had a negative for it, it would be that it has no story at all. Okay. But I mean, like, you know, if I'm not going to put you down if you like stories in your video games. I like stories in video games too, but sometimes I just kind of want to fucking get on with it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is one of the reasons why I love Dead Cells so much. Dead Cells, it wastes no time. It doesn't even have a title screen. Like, when you die in Dead Cells, you just go right back to the beginning of the game. It doesn't even have a title screen.
Yeah.
It just, you get on with it. And that's what I want. I want to get on with it. I want to have my fun, and I want to have it immediately. I don't want any updates.
Yeah.
I don't, you know what I mean?
Well, even as a big RPG gamer, like, I know you are and I am, like, there's just times, like, even when I was playing Paper Mario, where I'm like, how many more things do I have to click through? Like, I'm enjoying it, I like it, but after a while, I'm just like, let me play the game, please.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, I don't know if it's just a result of, like, maybe getting older, or maybe just playing so many of these games that you're just like, this is so much for my brain to handle right now.
Yes. I couldn't put my finger on what the reason is either. But yeah, it's again, like with shoot 'em ups, for example. Like, it's one of the reasons I like shoot 'em ups so much. You just get on with it.
Yep.
So in that regard, Lapis Labyrinth, again, really scratches where I itch. I kind of expected I would like it when I first saw it. And after about a half an hour of playing it, I was like, ooh, boy, this might have been a waste of money.
Gotcha.
But now that I've stuck with it and I understand the mechanics a little bit better, yeah, it's fun. I'll probably play it to the end. It's a lot of fun.
Is it like a full price release, or is it budget?
It's budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can get it digitally for like in Canadian $40, which is about half the price of a first party release.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
It's not
like $30.
Not expensive at all.
Nice. Anything else that you've been playing lately, or has Lapis Labyrinth consumed you entirely?
No, it hasn't consumed me. For a while, Etrian Odyssey Nexus consumed me, and I was genuinely worried about recording one of these episodes and being like, "Sorry, guys, that's all I've been playing."
Well, I was hoping that this episode would be the one where you're like, "I finished it."
Oh yeah, I've gone on to New Game Plus.
Oh, are you serious?
I'm almost finished New Game Plus.
What are you doing with yourself, Paul?
Wasting my time.
Why are you doing this to yourself?
I don't, dude. I swore that I'd never play New Game Plus in a game ever again. But Nexus is it's the last Etrian Odyssey, right? I want to enjoy it.
Is it the final one?
That's kind of the impression
that they've given,
that the fans got. Yeah, but if they released a new one for the Switch, I would not hesitate. Like, I'd be super happy and I'd get right on it.
Yeah.
But, given that I expect it's definitely the last one on a dual screen system.
Absolutely.
So, I've just been really enjoying it to the fullest. Anyhow, I have been playing other stuff. I started playing, so have you heard of 428 Shibuya Scramble?
Yes, and when you started that sentence, I was like, no. And then you finished that sentence, and I was like, actually, yes. And it looks super interesting. And when people were initially saying, like, oh, I found this game, like, it looks really cool, and then I started, like, hearing more about it, I really wanted to play it, and I haven't been able to find it anywhere.
Yeah, it's definitely, kind of a limited release, so to speak.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't do that. They just didn't make that many copies. I actually picked mine up in December and finally got around to starting to play it about a month ago. And so basically it's a Spike Chunsoft game. So it kind of has that, they lean on the Danganronpa kind of style there.
Yeah.
But it's not quite like that. Basically, it's kind of a choose your own adventure game. It's a visual novel, if I had to describe it as something. Mm-hmm. But the conceit of the game is that you follow several different characters at certain points of the day. So each block of the game is 1 hour in these characters' lives. And you jump from character to character and you make choices in their story. And the choices you make in one character's story will affect what happens to another character. But none of these characters know each other.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
I was just going to say, like that in particular, I'm not a big visual novel guy. Like, I just got through telling everyone how I'm clicking through RPG text. Like,
yeah,
visual novels have never grabbed my attention. But if you throw in a twist like this, like a little wrinkle in the mechanic where it's not just like you cycle through and you make the choices and then things happen, this sounds like more interesting to me. This sounds like something I could genuinely get into.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more interesting with that particular mechanic.
Yeah.
And it's also more interesting in that it's, real life characters in a real life location instead of like the anime style.
Yeah.
Which I know can put a lot of people off. It's a little bit, there are a lot of particular tropes in that style.
Yeah.
That just don't happen in 428 Shibuya Scramble.
So when you say real life, like, is this like FMV sort of stuff? Like it's real people?
It's almost all stills.
Okay.
There's very, very little actual video. But it is like photographed stills of actors. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. One of the reasons I like it, dude, I've actually got into the habit of playing it over breakfast.
Okay. It's just like a little thing before work?
Yeah, because it's super easy to just kind of go through one character's kind of like hour in about 20 minutes or so. And you can just hit autoplay, so you don't have to actually scroll through the text.
Okay.
So you can, I can hold my bowl of yogurt and granola in one hand and spoon the goodness into my mouth with the other, and the game just kind of plays itself.
See, here's the thing, is when you say a sentence like that, I think back to us playing on like a Super Nintendo or something, and to say that I could ever imagine a future in which we would let games play themselves while we just eat, honestly would have been very helpful back then. Like there were so many times like I'd be stuck in an RPG battle or something and I'm like, man, I'm starving, but I have to get through this boss fight in like 15 minutes worth of text conversations before I can save or something.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how things have just evolved to the point now where we're like, they've made things so convenient that now we can have breakfast, and instead of like reading the newspaper, you'll just play 428 Shibuya Scramble.
Yeah. So I'm about, I don't know, a third of the way through it.
Yeah.
It starts off kind of slow. Like there's like one big kind of event that happens at the beginning of the game.
Okay.
And then there's all the ramifications from that event and resolving the event. So the game only starts off with 2 characters. And at first I was like, I don't know. It's like Lapis Labyrinth. I was like, I don't know about this game. But now that I've gotten through and more characters have been introduced, there are definitely a couple more who are more interesting.
Okay.
And the writing is at times really, really funny.
Okay.
Really funny. Like genuine, I'm sitting there and I'm laughing out loud. So, the writers, good job by them. They're not taking it too seriously. It's, there's a lot of comedic elements to it, and the comedic elements work.
Okay.
So if you want something a bit different, I think you could do a lot worse, right? Like especially if you're looking for a visual novel, like you're like, I've always wanted to try one of these. You could definitely do a lot worse than 428, especially because you can also play it on the Vita via remote play, which is, it's a big plus. Visual novels on the PS4, it's like, you definitely want to be doing that while you do something else, generally speaking. But on the Vita, you lie in bed and it's like reading a book, but, perhaps a little more fun depending on the book.
Yeah.
And I would recommend it for that reason. It's funny I mentioned the eating. Like this is the great secret of why Super Robot Wars is such a great game. Because I remember playing Super Robo Wars on the Saturn, Robo Wars F and F Final. And I played those games almost every day for like a full year while I ate lunch.
That's
because you can like, you can move your unit and then attack another unit with your unit, and then an animation plays out. And the animation is usually like around, depending on the complexity of the attack, anywhere from like 20 to 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's a great time to shovel food into your mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah, Robo Wars, man. Another great game to play. We're going to do an episode on great games to play while you're eating.
Oh, I don't know that I would have any games like that, honestly. Although, I mean, honestly, maybe like Fire Emblem. Because again, like you said, it's you move your unit, then you do the attack, you wait for that animation to go by, maybe take a bite of your sandwich, and then you make your other moves. And then when your turn's done, you wait for the enemy to make all his moves.
Yeah, I might say Fire Emblem. I would put Robo Wars ahead of it.
Yeah.
Because in Robo Wars, the attacks
Are so ridiculously long.
Yeah, and like more elaborate. And the characters, like, they have a line that they say before they attack.
Oh, good.
So if you're attacking with Camille from Zeta Gundam, like, Camille spits out like this long thing about how, you know, nobody appreciates him or whatever. And that's like 10 seconds already. And then he actually attacks.
So basically what you're saying is that this game is almost like requires you to be doing something else while you're playing it.
Yeah. Not a great advertisement for a game. I love Robo Wars. I have all day for it. But definitely a game that benefits from the cell phone era.
Yeah.
Where you can just kind of fiddle through with your phone
while
during these kind of parts if you've seen the attack like 10,000 times, which often you will. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you before we take another break is, so in 428, when you're playing, I know you say like your actions with one character affect the other ones, and I just want to make sure I'm getting a sense of this without spoiling anything, but can you lose characters as you go through?
You don't lose characters, but you do get bad endings.
Okay.
So if you're going through with one character and the game ends because you have a bad ending, something weird happens to them.
Yeah.
Then you go to another character's storyline.
Okay.
And make a different choice at a certain point.
Oh, gotcha.
And then go back to the other character, and then you can progress further.
Okay.
Instead of getting the bad ending.
Okay.
By the way, the bad endings, often hilarious.
Well, see, that's what I was wondering is like, does it sort of motivate you? Like, say, if you get a bad ending for a character and you finish the rest of them, does it motivate you to go back and sort of redo the whole game? But no, it kind of like kicks you back and is like, make a different choice here. And then you sort of, which at first I was like, I don't know if I like that. But now I'm like, actually, I think that's the best way to do it, because that way you don't have to go through the entire game over again. You can just go back and make a different choice. And then that way you get to see not only the different choice you didn't make the first time, but continue the other character's storyline.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, the bad endings.
Yeah.
Even though it's a bad ending, I never felt like
like you were
I was being
gypped out of
punished.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was always like one of the endings is like one of the main characters makes a different choice about his career.
Okay.
And then buys a farm, retires with his wife, and has a child.
That sounds like a lovely ending.
I'm saying, right? Like, it said bad end, but like, it was perfect. And it was really funny. So, yeah. That's pretty much it for me.
All right.
Let's take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about E3.
Sounds good.
All right, everyone, and we're back. And on our break, I decided to do the thing that I should have done before the show and look up how to pronounce Lappy. It's not Lappy, it's Lapis. So the game that I spent, 20 minutes talking about, actually Lapis Labyrinth.
There we go.
And it's weird. Like when you look at the box, it's actually Lapis X Labyrinth.
Yeah.
But if you go to NIS's website and look up the game, which I did because it doesn't come with a manual because obviously.
Yeah.
So I went to their website to see if I could look up some of the mechanics and stuff that I needed to understand better. And they specifically say on the website, you don't pronounce the X. It's just Lapis Labyrinth.
Okay.
So anyhow,
yeah.
5 stars for professionalism. I'm mildly embarrassed.
You live and you learn.
Hey, you live and you learn, man. At least I'm owning it now instead of figuring it out after the show.
That's true.
Much like with our Raptors talk, it's funny we talked about the Raptors winning the championship at the beginning of the show because last week you and I recorded a Fire Emblem episode.
We sure did.
But we recorded the Fire Emblem episode with the intent of releasing it later in July, closer to the release of Three Houses.
Yeah.
just to kind of like build on the hype.
Of course.
And we talked about the Raptors in that episode too.
Our one attempt to do something that made sense. And now we've screwed it all up.
Yeah.
But I like that.
So we're going to release this one first, you know, talking about how the Raptors won. And then our Fire Emblem episode is going to have us talking about, I don't know if they're going to win, man. That's going to be a tall order.
Yeah. And there's two things I like about this. One is that people who actually listen to this episode will get a nice little treat, like an hour and 20 minutes into it. But also the fact that we are, I don't want to say too lazy, but maybe like shameless enough that we don't just edit out that part of the Fire Emblem episode. No, we own our mistakes on here.
Yeah, it's a little from column A and a little from column B. I just don't feel like editing it, no. and I think the listeners will appreciate some.
They'll get a kick out of it.
I'm sure they appreciate the good content, and I'm sure they appreciate some of the gaffes too, because that's always fun. I mean, you know, we're regular people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So there you go. Anyhow, yeah, E3, man.
E3.
So, E3 just came and went.
It sure did.
And I have to admit, I wasn't really like, you know, on pins and needles looking forward to it, right? It just kind of came and I was like, oh yeah, E3. And then the hype kind of built over the week and the weekend. Yeah. And after a while, I actually started getting more interested in it. Mm-hmm. So, pretty interesting show, man. Like, what did you take away from it?
You know, it was funny. I'm really happy that we're doing this because I did have people on Instagram asking, like, are you guys going to talk about E3? And initially we weren't, but now we're doing it, so I'm very happy. I agree with you 100%. And I think it was, you know, when Sony said they weren't going to be at it, I think that just sort of took the wind out of a lot of people's sails. Yeah. But I completely agree with you. I think that it was sort of a slow burn, and towards the end of the weekend, people started getting hyped up for it. But generally, I think that we're seeing that E3 is just not the same sort of showcase that it was before. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, obviously, like having the internet now, there's a bunch of leaks and news just gets spread out much earlier. And also, I think Nintendo specifically with their Direct, now that they've started doing that, have sort of learned, like, we don't have to save everything for this one moment and just sort of give it to everybody all at once. We can sort of control when we want to release news and when we want to make big announcements ourselves. And they've, I think, taken sort of that power away from E3 in the sense of, like, this is where you're going to get all the biggest game announcements of the year. And But
that said, though, their biggest game announcements of the year came during E3 with their Nintendo Direct. Yeah. Like, it really did feel like they were saving up something special for E3.
I'm sure they were, but I think that part of it now is they don't have to, because I feel, and I don't know if this is true, so don't just take it with a grain of salt, but sometimes I feel like people, because E3 was like that moment to do that, a lot of games got either announced too early or maybe got rushed to get announced at E3. Whereas now I feel like their mindset is more so like, we can have 2-3 big announcements for E3, and then the rest of the stuff we can announce when we're ready to announce it. You know, we don't have to sort of push to get this much stuff ready for E3. But like you said, they did have some big stuff for E3. Like, it's clear to me that E3 is still important, but I think it's becoming important in a different way than it previously was.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I think if we're going to get into it, like, the biggest thing, at least for me, was Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah. And I'm mixed on it. Like, I know people are hyped through the moon for this thing. I thought it looked gorgeous when I saw the trailer. Obviously, Keanu Reeves stole the show, you know, in his sort of appearance there. People weren't expecting that. It's crazy to think that something like that could be kept from the public for that long.
I love it.
Until they're ready to announce it. Yeah, it was perfect. Like, if this had been leaked, it wouldn't have had the same sort of oomph that you got when you saw it live.
Yeah, and I like just in general in society, not to make this a big philosophical thing. Yeah, but I'm tired of leaks, man. I think we've largely kind of lost the ability to appreciate a surprise.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, And not only a surprise, but a proper build-up and deployment of the surprise for maximum impact.
Yep.
You know? Something like the Keanu moment, that's, I hope we remember that, and perhaps are a little bit more judicious with the leaking of information, because, you know, we all know these leaks are not happening by accident. It's not just some employee being like, hey, did you hear about this? You know, this, for the most part, these leaks are planned.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in talking about 2077, like I said, game looks gorgeous. I'm super excited for it, but I will say, I didn't see any gameplay. And I know they had a huge thing last E3 where I think they did something like 45 minutes of gameplay. But when you're talking about a game that's, you know, from then to now, things must be so different. You know, I don't trust gameplay I saw a year ago for a game that's coming out in another year.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we get to see a little bit more in depth as it gets closer. I liked what I saw, but I'm just really curious to see how they're going to pull this all together. The other thing that about Cyberpunk that has me a little curious is it seems like Microsoft is prepping to sort of launch their new console, the Scarlet, either late 2020 or sometime in 2021. So I'm wondering if Cyberpunk is going to get... I think that console is going to be backwards compatible with Xbox One games, but I'm wondering if Cyberpunk is also sort of getting a treatment where, like, if you play it on this new console, it's going to look even better. You know what I mean? Like, if it's going to take advantage of all that new tech. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, dude, with the amount of hype into this game, if I'm Microsoft, I just hand is it Red? Project Red?
CD Projekt Red, yeah.
Yeah, I just hand them a blank check, and say, write down a number. Yeah, just write down a number. We'll pay anything. Make it exclusive.
Yeah.
A game like that, if it had exclusivity, that would put Microsoft back on the map.
Absolutely. Yeah, even if it's a limited exclusivity, like exclusive for a year or something.
A year, even a year would be good.
People will not wait to play this. People will buy this day one.
Yeah, I agree.
But no, I mean, that was king of the show for me. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to throw one my way?
Yeah, keep going, man.
Okay. The other big thing that I feel like we need to talk about, even though it's like in our sphere, I don't think this is world shattering, but the Banjo-Kazooie announcement for Super Smash Brothers, huge.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Gigantic. It's funny because I can't remember if it was Microsoft or who it was. Basically, I think it was Phil Spencer, basically tweeting and saying, like, this wasn't a hard decision, you know, to sort of, like, there weren't, like, massive negotiations of, like, how are we going to get Banjo-Kazooie into Smash? Nintendo just sort of came to them, and they claimed that they were really willing to work with them. But I'm glad, on the one hand, I'm really glad this is happening because a lot of people wanted it, and of the characters that are not in Smash that people have been really clamoring for, I feel like Banjo-Kazooie are one of the, if not the biggest one that was sort of intrinsically tied to Nintendo that just wasn't on there. So I'm very happy that they got them there. I'm even more excited that the Dragon Quest Hero got announced. Sort of got overshadowed a little bit, understandably so, because people have been wanting Banjo and Kazooie in Smash since, like, Melee. But I'm very excited that, one, he's in there, and two, that all his alternate costumes are different heroes from different Dragon Quests. Like, the things that Masahiro Sakurai and, like, the Smash team do to appease fans is, like, amazing to me.
There's no other game. Yeah. No other game that does that.
The lengths that they go to sort of make sure that people are happy are incredible. And the fact that people still complain every single time is unavoidable. Sure. But
I was about to complain about the Dragon Quest hero.
Oh my god. Well, here's the thing is part of me is like, I was really excited to see Banjo and Kazooie. I'm really happy for everybody who wanted that. But part of me was also like, kind of wish you hadn't done that, because now people are like, well, now we can complain about anything and eventually we'll get it. You know what I mean? Like, they're batting 1,000. They got Cloud, they got Banjo-Kazooie, they got Solid Snake, they got everybody except Waluigi. He's the only one.
Oh, right. Yeah. Waluigi's, I think, only an assist trophy in that game.
Oh my god. I wouldn't be shocked if Sakurai was like, there's an extra DLC character. We got Waluigi, everybody.
He would have to be free.
You know what? That poor man. I really hope that somebody sometime, like, releases him from whatever captivity he's sort of placed himself into by continuing to work on these games.
Yeah. But I mean, we're thankful.
Yeah,
right? Absolutely.
I mean, it's part of the experience. It's going to make the game more fun. People are going to enjoy it. Like, I have a healthy cynicism for anything that companies do, and I don't for a second doubt that this is, you know, all about the bottom line, but it's hard for me not to believe that Masahiro Sakurai isn't so completely devoted to this work and trying to give people what they want that he's just really invested in, like, this is what's going to make people the most happy. Yeah,
I think, you know, I do think that is probably the biggest consideration.
Yeah.
The fact is, having Banjo-Kazooie in there, it's beneficial for everyone, right? It's beneficial for Nintendo because they get another really cool character in their beloved game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beneficial for Microsoft because it keeps that character that they essentially own, you know, it keeps it in the public eye.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about, you know, what we talked about in our Fire Emblem episode that has yet to be released. How Smash Melee for the GameCube helped bring Fire Emblem over because you had Marth and Roy.
Absolutely.
And people are like, wow, we love Marth and Roy. Hey, where's Fire Emblem? You know, I think it's beneficial for both sides.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, probably the biggest consideration there is what the fans want. And that was just a great little choice.
Yeah. And I mean, I think people have been speculating that, like, this sort of portends a Banjo 3E at some point. Which, you know, part of me is like, I'd love to see it. I'd love to play another Banjo-Kazooie game, no doubt. But, you know, I feel like the Rare of now is so far removed from the Rare that made those games that I just don't know that, you know, it's like people always say you sort of want to keep it as what you remember it as, not as, you know, take the shot and then sort of ruin it in the eyes of a lot of fans. So if they choose to do it, I just hope it turns out well.
Yeah, it would have to be. That's tough, man, because it also came along at a time when that genre was still a baby.
Yeah.
So the 3D collectathon was still kind of fresh, but if they kind of released the same game but with better graphics now, I don't think it would be reviewed as well.
Yeah.
I think they'd have to make it something fresh.
Yeah. But that was that. I'm very happy. You own Smash, right? So are you gonna get these characters? Like, have you gotten Persona 5 guy? Sorry, you know, Joker. What?
Yeah, Joker, Persona 5 guy. Yeah. The short answer is no, I haven't.
Okay.
And it's honestly just laziness.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, I play Smash. Let me put it to you this way. If I had another friend who also liked Persona 5 as much as I do, and who also played, if there was an intersection there, then I think it would be a no-brainer. But because I'm the only one, it's not quite as much fun. You know what I mean? Like, we still get together and play Smash from time to time. You know, even though the game is now 7 months old or whatever.
Yeah.
We still get together and play it. But, like, if I'm the only one who's really enjoying using Joker because he's Joker, then how much fun am I really having? You know what I mean?
That's a fair point. I agree with that.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to mention about this is one thing you talked about is that Smash is 7 months old. And that's so insane to me. And I think that's the advantage. I think a lot of people weren't too thrilled about the DLC stuff, but I think the advantage to that is, you know, it keeps the game sort of feeling fresh even this long after release. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like most games, a month out, you're like, well, that was a thing that happened, I guess. But Smash is still sort of creating these moments of pure joy for people with all these announcements and stuff.
Yeah, still relevant. Look, it's a great game. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's just a great game. And the fact that it's still relevant, well deserved. It's better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
You know, I remember talking about it a while ago, and like I almost canceled my pre-order, and I like kept my pre-order.
Yeah.
Because other friends of mine were also getting it, and I found out at the last second. But even then, I was just kind of I was just like, it's a game I'm going to play with my friends or whatever. Yeah. Wrong. No, it's fantastic. Single player, especially multiplayer. You know, there's just so much, especially multiplayer, there's just so much ridiculous shit that happens.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And we still got 2 more secret DLC characters left, I think, because they said 5, so we got 3 down.
5 total.
We got 2 more, so I'm excited.
What else you got on your plate there?
So the last point I wanted to bring up, this is sort of niche. This one's for me, as I like to say. And I say that as if this entire endeavor wasn't just me indulging myself and talking about whatever the hell I want. But this one's for me.
That's like the podcast.
And exactly. And I'm rolling these 2 tiny things up into one thing. The first is this Enter the Gungeon stand-up arcade cabinet. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have.
This thing looks so sick, and I want to own it. And I want to play it. It's a light gun version of Enter the Gungeon as a full-size upright arcade cabinet. I haven't seen too much. Like, I saw a little bit of gameplay in like a trailer. But this looks awesome.
That's pretty. It does. It looks really cool.
This looks super cool. And apparently, I'm hoping that when they say like it's coming out, maybe that means it'll be at like Dave & Buster's or something like that, so I can actually go play it and not have to purchase the machine.
I think it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah,
if I was to guess,
I think so.
We could probably just look it up.
Yeah.
But and why find would we out do that? For sure. But like, there have been like a lot of these stand-up arcade machines for your home now getting released. Well, like we talked about, not on the show, but we talked about in chat, the Ninja Turtles one.
Well, now that you say that was Marvel. The other part of my point. Yeah, was Arcade 1UP had they announced a whole brand new lineup of stand-up arcade cabinets for your home. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one, which is TMNT Arcade and Turtles in Time. Full 4-player board. Amazing. I think they said it costs $350. I think $350 is what it costs. Yeah. Plus, you got to buy because these are like 4 feet tall, so they're not a full-sized one. So if you don't want to sort of crouch down or be sitting down, they sell risers that basically like a little cardboard box you put the arcade on to make it like a full 6 feet or whatever it is. And those are like $50, I think. So maybe like for $400 or around there, you can own that, which is great because those are 2 really fun games, especially to play 4-player with friends. And then they also announced a Marvel one, which has... Now let me think here. It's Marvel Superheroes, X-Men Children of the Atom, and The Punisher. The Genesis Punisher game, which I don't think has ever been released outside of that Genesis cart, which is insanely expensive, but is supposed to be a really, really cool beat 'em up game. And then they had one more announcement, which I don't know if you've heard of, which was the Star Wars arcade games, which they're doing Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, and they've designed it with the Yoke controller. I don't know if you've ever played these, the Atari Star Wars ones, where it's like...
Oh, wow.
It's like this really weird little device. And so that one's a bit more expensive because they had to design that controller from scratch, basically.
Yeah.
But no, if you've played Star Wars the arcade game, it's really fun, and it's an older game, but it's really, really fun. I think the first one, A New Hope, is basically you're fighting TIE fighters, and then you're doing the trench run on the Death Star, and then you're blowing it up. And then my understanding is that there was no Empire arcade released. It was a conversion kit for the original Star Wars arcade machine.
Oh.
And then Return of the Jedi, which is the one I've played the most probably, is the Forest of Endor. So you're basically on the speeder bikes flying through the Forest of Endor, just trying to like shoot down stormtroopers and stuff like that. I think there's more to it, but it's too hard for me to get past it. So
That's so cool. I'll be honest, I didn't even know those two were released. The only one I ever played was the first one.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that there were conversion kits for the other two. That's pretty cool.
With the sweet vector graphics. Well, Return was its own machine. But my understanding is that Empire was just a conversion kit for A New Hope. So that one is probably the one that most people are excited about because it was really hard to find that specific one. But yeah, so that one's crazy. Like, and I was listening to people talk about this on another podcast where that one's a huge deal because not only did they get the Star Wars license, but this thing is going to be bought by just people who are into Star Wars, not just video game people.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much more lucrative. What I like about this is that when I see them pick up licenses like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Marvel, and Star Wars, I'm like, ooh, now we can talk about getting some really, really cool stuff. Not saying that this isn't cool, but I'm talking like, give me Alien versus Predator.
Oh, I knew that was going to be the first thing exactly. You said, and rightfully so.
Yeah, get me
what a hidden gem that is.
Give me a Marvel versus Capcom one, you know? Like, let's get into like some real upper tier stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it looks like, I don't know, like, is this going to slow down? Like, there appear to be people out there who just have this kind of disposable income.
Well, here's the thing is, you know, they seem to sort of be in that $300 to $400 something range. I think I misspoke earlier. I think the TMNT one is maybe $400 because I think the Star Wars one, they didn't release a price, but people are speculating that it's going to be $450 to $500.
See, I don't see how that's possible. I mean, I would love to see it happen.
Yeah.
And I get that the TMNT one is a bit more affordable, but like, I don't see how the Star Wars one is that price. And I was just looking up the Enter the Gungeon one.
Yeah.
The Enter the Gungeon one it's like $5,000.
Yeah, but that's a full stand-up arcade machine.
That's a full stand-up arcade. Yeah. I understand that.
The thing with the TMNT one is that one's more expensive, I think, because it has the full 4-player panel. So I think it's dimensionally, I think it's a little bit bigger. And I'm sure the licensing costs are like built into that as well.
Yeah, but it's also a matter of space too. Yeah. Like, I'm one of the lucky people who owns a house.
Yeah.
Right? Not a condo apartment, but like an actual house with an actual yard. And, you know, we're very happy and we're very fortunate. I do not have space in my house for any of this stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with you 100%.
And that's part and parcel. Like, when we talk about how affordable it is, yeah, like on a micro level.
Yeah.
Yes, $400 is something that you can save up for. You know, you put away $30 a month, and then a year later, bam, you have your arcade machine, all your dreams come true, you can play Ninja Turtles at home. But, you know, part of that is having a large enough property. That's like a very large segment of the population that is not able to purchase this kind of thing.
I agree. But I think,
like, I do wonder if eventually we're just going to kind of run out of space, and this turns into like almost a Rock Band kind of situation.
You know,
where it gets popular and people are like, oh my God, arcade machines. And then no.
See, I would love to find these at like a Goodwill like 10 years from now for $20 or something.
Absolutely.
But I think the thing is, you know, I do agree with you, like space wise, which space in some areas of the country and the world is premium. You know what I mean? Like, filling your house with a bunch of these is, I think, untenable. But I think the appeal is there in, like we said, the value of it. Like, if you've ever wanted to own an arcade machine, and I think a lot of people have always wanted to own an arcade machine.
Absolutely.
You can't really do better than $300. You know what I mean? Even if it's a scaled down version, which is probably a plus for a lot of people, you really can't do better than this money-wise. I don't know if it's a feasible business model going forward, because I think once you have... I think it becomes a balancing act, right? Like, once you have one, I think it's really hard for you to justify buying another one because of space. But because they only put certain games on these, you might be tempted. You know, if you went out right away and bought the Mortal Kombat one, and now you see the TMNT one, you're like, well, damn, I would have preferred to have the TMNT one. You know, do we see people, like you said, sort of getting rid of some to bring in others? I just don't know how you sort of keep people buying into these the longer it goes.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is an unending appetite for this kind of thing. Yeah. But, you know, I can see it just because of the size. I can see this, you know, trend getting kind of old fast.
Yeah.
But also in a way, I hope it doesn't. Just because, you know what? I'm never going to own it. But I'm happy just knowing that there is a 4-player affordable TMNT arcade machine. Yeah. Because I loved that game when I was a kid. It was that one and The Simpsons Arcade.
Actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, they did announce another one. I saw this because I was watching people's like videos from E3, and I think they also said there's a Golden Tee one. I have to double check that.
Yeah, they did. They did. I heard about this as well.
But that one, it's funny. I'm not a huge like golf video game fan. That's one that I was like, that one's for like the old heads. Like I remember when Golden Tee was like the game that was in every bar that you'd go to. Yeah,
for sure. I wonder if it'll be able to take the kind of abuse that Golden Tee inspires.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, with like a home version. Thing that I saw to address maybe a little bit what you've been talking about. Apparently, they're also planning like tabletop models or like models you can hang on a wall or something like that are just very compact. So maybe those are the ones that people will sort of keep buying. I don't know. It's really interesting to see, but I agree with you. Like, just the fact that at some point maybe they could release a Simpsons arcade version that's like $300, I would love that. Like, that'd be so amazing.
Again, I'll never own it, but oh boy, like that would be something, man. A Simpsons arcade machine, it'd be very hard not to splurge for it.
Yeah.
And just kind of apologize to my wife later,
and,
you know?
Yeah. And these are, from what I can see, like, they've also done a really good job of not making these, like, sort of, this is for gamers, quote unquote. Like, you won't find these at GameStop, I don't think. I think you can order them online at GameStop, but where most people buy these that I'm seeing is, like, Walmart. So, this is very easily something that, like, a dad would walk by and be like, oh, this looks like, you know, something the kids would really get a kick out of. Or maybe I remember like playing some of these older games back in the day, and for $300, you take it home, you put it together, you know, you can play Asteroids or for a little bit, or Gauntlet, or, you know, whichever one you end up getting.
Yeah, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. Cool.
But that's it for me.
Well, on my end, I think the big announcement. There's a few, right? Yeah. Like we already talked about the Nintendo Direct. We talked about. Well, actually, no. Sorry, we didn't talk about Link's Awakening.
We did not.
But you know, Link's Awakening, the Panzer Dragoon remake, like that Nintendo Direct was a direct fucking kick to the nuts of my wallet. And also my free time. I don't know how I'm going to have time to play all the stuff that they talked about in that Direct.
Yeah.
Like Link's Awakening in September. I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
You know how.
Let's not even talk about the Contra collection, which you can get right now. The Secret of Mana collection, which you can get right now. Like,
I'm not a Secret of Mana guy, but like, I get it. I get why people are excited for it. Yeah, man, that Nintendo Direct was something else, and Link's Awakening, especially, I was like, shit, dude, like that's really, really cool, really unexpected, and that's a day one purchase, honestly. So yeah, like that's, you know, that was a big deal. The Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer, like,
So tell me
Dude,
what you think about this. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are.
It looks great.
Okay.
It looks great. Like, I mean, how do you can't not get excited for it, right? Like, you just can't. I heard, like, you hear the battle, like, I was watching the trailer and I heard the battle music. I got chills, dude. I got chills. I was watching it and I'm like, damn, like this, this looks really good. The characters are all a little bit more, I say realistic,
gritty,
but as realistic as a Buster Sword,
exactly,
and spiked hair, and just all of Tifa could possibly be, right?
Yeah.
But like, compared to how they were in 1997,
oh yeah,
they have like a little bit more mature look. Looks really good. All the redesigns, I'm on board for all of them, and yeah, man, I'm just looking forward to that one.
Yeah. Here's the thing that people have been talking about that I'm sort of on the fence about is the fact that it's supposedly, well, not supposedly, it is episodic in nature. So apparently the first game isn't gonna leave Midgar. I haven't gotten too far into Final Fantasy VII myself. Like, I've never beaten it. But they've also said that the first game is gonna be 2 Blu-ray discs worth of content. So on the one hand, people are like, well, you don't leave Midgar till like 5 hours into the game. On the other hand, they're like, we're going to fill 2 PS4 games full of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there has to be some crazy stuff. Like, they're basically saying that they're going to make a brand new RPG every time they release one of these episodes.
I'm not skeptical. It's weird to say that. I'm skeptical about like fucking everything, but I actually have faith that they'll do it well.
Pull it off.
Yeah, I do. I get that the episodic nature of it seems like a bit of a cash grab.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more they can do, right? Like, let's bear in mind, as groundbreaking and beloved as Final Fantasy VII was, there could have been a lot more story. There could have been a lot more character development, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that they would be able to add stuff to, especially the Midgar section of it, without it necessarily being filler.
Yeah. And I will say, my biggest concern with something like this doesn't even apply, in that my biggest concern with episodic content is always, what if it doesn't sell well and they run out of money and they never finish it?
Not possible.
Like, especially how long we waited for this part. But with something like Final Fantasy VII, like, Sony would write any check of any amount to have them keep this going, because people are going to buy this. They're going to buy it a lot. So you're right.
No
like,
doubt.
Even if it's episodic, as long as they sort of keep to it and finish it, I don't see how it could be, bad, because they're following a framework that people love. So even if they change it a little bit and they play around with some of the mechanics and stuff like that, I think that as long as the basics are there and people, get to see their favorite characters again in high definition and get to see that story they've loved and they've played for so long, I don't see how this isn't a winner for Sony.
Absolutely. And I mean, let's say Midgar sells horribly.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say there's some weird world where this actually happens. We know how the story ends.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We're not being deprived of a conclusion to this story that we all grew up with,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So there's no disappointment really there either, So yeah, I think it's just kind of a win all around. That said, they're going to release all the episodes. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that is happening.
And then really quickly, sorry, just a really quick thing.
Yeah, man.
That Panzer Dragoon remake, I want people to know, like, buy this only to try to get them to make more, because I want Panzer Dragoon Saga and I want to not have to pay like $700 for it.
It would be nice. It would be nice. I will probably be getting the Panzer Dragoon remake day one, for several reasons, right? Beautiful looking game, distinct art style, distinct music, modern sensibilities for it.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of reasons to get it. And low key, one of the reasons is just so I hope it sells well, so eventually they try their hand at Saga. That would be nice. But, we'll see.
We'll see.
A couple other things real quick. Speaking of Mr. Game & Brews, he was the first guy who sent me a message on Instagram after Phantasy Star Online 2 got announced.
Oh, yes.
He's like, "Hey man, did you see this?" And I, in all honesty, actually I didn't. He was the first one who told me about it. And I was like, shit, that's pretty cool. I liked Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
It's not really like the Phantasy Star game that I grew up with, but it takes a lot of the aesthetic and does something new with it. And I really enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm, cautiously optimistic for PSO 2. So, thanks for pointing that out to me. And, it's funny actually. So Zucchini Games on Instagram, she sent me a message. She was holding a copy of Tales of Fantasia for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And she just sends me a message saying, "Hey, I picked up this game and I thought of you immediately." and I'm like, "Okay, but my game's Phantasy Star, right?" And she's like, "Oh my God, you're right. I was wrong. We've reached the point now where any game now that has a P and an H in it together, people just send me a message.
That's automatically your game.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. I was excited for PSO2 in the same way that I was excited for Banjo-Kazooie. Like, am I going to play it myself? Probably not, but I know enough people who are really excited about it and who've been really wanting to play it that I'm happy they got it. And, all we can do is hope that it turns out as good as they're expecting it to be. What I thought was crazy about this is that this was a Microsoft announcement. Considering that, like, Phantasy Star, the original Phantasy Star Online came out on the Dreamcast, and then it got a GameCube port, and now it's going on Xbox One. Phantasy Star has been around the block, man.
Yeah, man. It's
They've been on every system.
I'm not going to make any obvious jokes here. It's also going to be on PS4 as well, though.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when it gets localized, not if. Mm-hmm. So we might see the Xbox One version come out in the West first.
Yeah.
And then the PS4 one. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm not. The bottom line is it's sometime in 2020.
Yep. And
we're still knee deep in 2019 now. So, that'll happen when it happens. The other big one, dude, TurboGrafx Mini.
Oh, Lord. Here we go.
I mentioned this on the Sega Genesis episode. I hear these mini announcements and I'm like, another mini console. But like, dude, I have to get excited for the TurboGrafx Mini. Like, I can't help it. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Another mini console. I feel like a sucker.
Yeah.
But how do you not?
Well,
how do you not? If you grew up with this stuff.
I mean, considering this is coming out after our Sega Genesis Mini episode, and I'm currently facing what I'm sure is a wave of hostile backlash for my spicy hot takes from that episode.
So are you going to tell me that you don't want Rondo of Blood? Is that what you're
wonder.
Gonna tell me?
Well, first of all, there's no Keith Courage in Alpha Zones, so automatically strike against that. But no, here's the thing. There's a couple of things that I like about this. And one is that I'm sort of in the same position you are, where honestly, after the Super Nintendo Mini, I was kind of done with the whole thing. I got that one. That was the one that I'd really wanted. It was a pain to get because I like an idiot, I actually managed to get a pre-order and then it was everywhere. And I enjoyed it for what it was, and I played the games I wanted to play on it, and I just really haven't touched it since. So I was like, I don't really need to get any more of these. Then the PlayStation one happened and it wasn't as good. Then the Sega Genesis one happened, and that's got me excited about it again because it has games that we just didn't get here. And that we could play on emulators and stuff like that, but this is sort of a way to get it, support the company, support them doing more stuff like this in the future, and have like what I would say a comparable experience to playing it on original hardware. Obviously not the same, but as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, and like Ozzy said, the emulation is going to be as good as possible.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to be like what you've experienced in the past.
Yeah.
It's being done in-house by Sega.
Yep.
The give a shit level is going to be high.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've already done this episode.
Yeah. But with the TurboGrafx one, I've heard people say that this one's not going to be as successful because people like this one is specifically for collectors or people who know about video games. There's very few people, you know, it would be argued that would be wandering around and be like, oh my God, the TurboGrafx-16, like I definitely need to own this. And on the one hand, I do kind of agree with that. But on the other hand, the reason I like this one in particular is because one, the TurboGrafx-16 is just harder to collect for in general. Unless you owned one when you were younger or you got into it before prices started going up, getting into the TurboGrafx, I would say, is a step above monetarily getting into Genesis collecting or Super Nintendo collecting or Nintendo collecting. The average price of games is just higher. So the value in having a collection of games that are well emulated and come with a comparable, you know, sort of control scheme to the original, I think that's value in and of itself. And then the fact that you might just get games that never came out here is another layer on top of that. You know, can you imagine if they, and I doubt they'll do this, but can you imagine if they threw Magical Chase on that thing? You know, that would
be fantastic.
That's a $3,000, $4,000 game. And if I can pay $70 to play it on, you know, this TurboGrafx Mini, I'd love to do that.
I still can't believe that that's a thing people say out loud.
Yeah.
The words, that is a $4,000 game.
Yes.
Like, I heard you say that out loud, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? I mean, you know, it's super rare, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And, you know, they've only announced, like, 6 games for each region. And, you know, eventually we're going to do an episode on this, I would assume.
Sure, yeah, how can we not, right?
Once more details come out. Konami's doing it. That's another part that I'm sort of like, on the one hand, they do own all the properties, so it makes sense that, you know, they can put a lot of games on here without too much hassle. But on the other hand, it's like, you know, what are they actually going to do? Like, are they going to put the games that they know people want on there, or are they going to sort of split them up between all the different versions to try to get people to buy more than one? Who knows?
And how good is the hardware going to be?
Yeah.
Like, I have faith that Sega will put, you know, their full elbows into it just because they've got a track record of doing that.
Yeah.
Konami does not have that track record.
Correct.
Konami has a track record of letting their IPs languish and not really give a shit about the fans, so to speak. And hey, like, I get it, you know, it's a business first. I don't want to be that guy who's like, well, they should just be running a charity and it should just be for us.
Yeah.
I'm realistic. I get it. You know, Pachinko, way to go, guys. But but it does make me a little bit more wary than with something like the Genesis Mini.
Absolutely. And I will say, and this is nothing to do with the quality of the system, and I want to say this because I want to know if this is a hot take from you personally. This is just me, like, this is my personal take. TurboGrafx-16, kind of an ugly system.
Oh yeah,
it's not appealing.
That's the other
system.
thing too.
But the
PC it's not pretty at all.
Is one of the coolest looking systems I've ever seen. So aesthetically, I'm already leaning towards, like, I want one of these because it looks cool.
Yeah. The thing about the PC Engine that made it especially cool was its size.
Yeah.
Right? It was by far the smallest system on the market back in the day. And so when you have a mini version, you don't really have that to lean on.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as pretty as you do.
Okay.
Like the Turbo Duo, for example, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
That's the, you know, that's the Lamborghini right there. But the TurboGrafx-16, no, it was never the prettiest.
Yeah.
The prettiest thing.
See, now you made me think of something interesting in that I get that you make a different. They've sort of made 3 for the 3 regions. I think we're getting the Turbo, Japan's getting the PC Engine, and I think Europe is getting the core graphics. I'm not sure about. That's what I think the press release said.
Okay.
But the thing I find interesting is they're putting Turbo CD games on here. So why wouldn't you just make a Turbo Duo Mini instead of a TurboGrafx Mini? Because
I don't know, dude. I think it's because, you know, it was the original one.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But like you said, like the Turbo Duo, in terms of aesthetic, I think is one of the sleekest consoles ever made.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the small name recognition you're going to get from this brand is gonna be the TurboGrafx-16 over the Turbo Duo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the fact is, by far more people owned the TurboGrafx than the Turbo Duo.
Yeah.
That's just it. I'm really actually excited for the PAL territory more than anyone else.
That's what I was going to say too. They never even got this.
Yeah, because they never
system.
got any of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there are European boxed TurboGrafx systems out there. When I went to go visit our buddy Vetterman Dennis in Portugal, he actually has one. It's in a box. And it's just TurboGrafx-16 released for Europe, entirely different look and box than the American one.
Really?
And I actually like held it in my hands, and I was like, "Ooh, it's so cool."
But there's no games.
I mean, there's no games for it. It's not really playable in any meaningful way. So the fact that they're getting it, I'm more excited for them because you know, they live in this territory where they're growing up and they're getting these gaming magazines and they're hearing about the PC Engine and they're hearing about the TurboGrafx. And yeah, we know that the TurboGrafx was largely a failure in North America. Yeah. But that said, you know, there's still a whole bunch of really cool games that they didn't get to play at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a reason why those games, why that library is sort of expensive now. It's not just because of scarcity. I mean, undoubtedly that's part of it, but it's also because there is quality in that library. Like, people want to play those games.
Yeah, it's a very hit or miss library.
Yeah.
Like, the games are either really good or like real stinkers.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, man, some of them smell really bad.
I mean, but you've seen the first 6 games for the lineup, and you're somebody who, unlike a lot of people, had experience with the system when you were growing up. So based on just the 6 games that you're seeing that they've already announced, like, what do you think? Are they sort of on the right track with it?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. The only miss there is Alien Crush instead of Devil Crush.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devil Crush is the superior pinball game, and I'm a little bit surprised they included Alien Crush instead.
Yeah.
That said, Alien Crush is still good. Like, it's not like it's, you know, a bad game or anything, so that's a perfectly fine inclusion. And the rest of these 6 are very, like, emblematic of the TurboGrafx PC Engine experience.
Yeah.
You know, you have R-Type. That machine was a shoot-'em-up monster.
Of course. Yeah.
And R-Type is probably the best console conversion of the arcade game.
Okay.
The R-Type for the PC Engine, that is. New Adventure Island, you know, Master Higgins, that's the Hudson Soft mascot. Yep. You know, that goes part and parcel with the TurboGrafx. Ninja Spirit, fantastic side-scrolling game that, you know, if it was on the Super NES, that game would be like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, East Book 1 and 2, like that's the CD game for the system. Yep. You know what I mean? Other than like Rondo of Blood, like when I think of TurboGrafx CD, I think of East Book 1 and 2, and I think of Lords of Thunder. Yeah. Which has to get released as well.
That's one that I'm really hoping for is Lords of Thunder.
Yeah. And then you have Dungeon Explorer, and Dungeon Explorer it's the 5-player TurboGrafx experience, right? That's the game that you could point to and say, you cannot play this on any other console. Yeah. Because you couldn't. Yeah. You know, Dungeon Explorer, through and through, is a TurboGrafx game. And like they're on the right track there. It seems like they know what's supposed to be on it, you know, so to speak, right?
And I think we've touched on this before, but I mean, we're hoping for Rondo of Blood. Yeah. And I think Bonk, one of, if not all 3 of those Bonk games need to be on the system.
They'll probably release Bonk's Revenge, if I was just to guess. I don't think they're going to release all 3. Yeah. But, and then, you know, if they're going to release one, it'll probably be the second one.
And then for my money, I know you said Dungeon Explorer is the 5-player TurboGrafx game, and I agree with you because you couldn't play it anywhere else. But there has to be a Bomberman on that system, I would think.
Dude, first time I ever played Bomberman was on the TurboGrafx, and it was a complete game changer. We had never played anything like it. We had 4 controllers. There were 4 of us playing, and you could play with up to 5. Yeah. It's just that we didn't have 5 controllers when I was a kid. But yeah, that's like, dude, Bomberman, part and parcel with that system as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then after that, just release the rarest and most expensive games. I mean, the good ones, like Star Soldier, like Lords of Thunder, Magical Chase. You know, you could go on forever.
Yeah, like there are some that are really expensive that I'm kind of like...
They're not great.
like the shoot 'em up Cotton.
Yeah.
I remember I had Cotton
Really?
when I was a kid, which makes me laugh now because it's like $800 or whatever. But I had it and I took it home and I was playing it and I'm like, nah. Yeah, no, not so great. And then I took it back to the store and traded it in for something else.
Yeah. What's the other, Valis 3, is that one of the big CD games as well?
Valis 3 is not like a big CD game, but it's definitely a CD game.
There's that library. I'm looking forward to more announcements because I don't know enough about the Turbo library, where I think it's going to be a cool experience for me just being surprised by what they put on there ultimately.
Yeah, what we need as well is either Final Zone or Valis 2 or both, just because they are the finest examples of terrible voice acting from that era.
Terrible anime cutscenes.
Oh yeah, the anime cutscenes, like especially those two.
Yeah.
Oh man, I really hope they include one of those two just for that reason.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Dude.
Well, more than any other mini, I would think, and obviously I don't know the intricacies of who owns all these licenses, but I would think that Konami probably has, in terms of like the big games that people want on there, probably is going to have the easiest time securing a lot of those big titles because they own a lot of them.
Yeah, virtually. I mean, so many of the IPs for the system, they just own them outright.
Yeah, and the rest of them, I can't imagine would be super difficult to secure.
No, I can't imagine either. Like, it would be a real shame, for example, if they didn't have Blazing Lasers or Gunhead.
Yeah.
If you're a PC Engine fan. It would be a real shame if they didn't have that. I don't think they own that IP. I think it was released by NEC and not Hudson, for example.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that, but I'm not going to look it up now.
Yeah. Does Hudson own who owns Airzonk? Do you know off the top of your head?
That was Hudson.
Yeah, so that's another one that I think, easily could be on there.
I can't imagine the system not having Airzonk.
Yeah.
I say that about a whole bunch. Like, I can't imagine. Well, and then the lineup's going to get finalized, and I'm going to be like, Jesus Christ.
Well, that's the other
there's
thing.
So many that they didn't include.
The other thing we haven't really talked about is the fact that they haven't said how many games are going to be on this thing yet, I don't think. But I would assume, with Sega putting 42 games on theirs, if it's anything less than 30, I think, that's a little harder to justify depending on what price they decide to put on this thing.
It might be 30 or less.
Yeah.
Remember, the TurboGrafx library is not nearly as deep.
That's true.
As the Genesis.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't want it to be bloated.
We're talking like a fifth of the games.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. I didn't think about that. You don't want it to be bloated just for the sake of having a ton of games on there.
No, you don't need Deep Blue and you don't need Magical Dinosaur Tour, right? Like, there's some of these games that you just don't need there.
I mean, with a name like Magical Dinosaur Tour, I don't know how you could go wrong.
I don't know either.
And I think to wrap it up, at least my thoughts on it, I think this, here's the thing, is this is sort of peak mini in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, if the TurboGrafx-16 is getting a mini and it sells well, there's no excuse for any other. Give me the Saturn. Give me, just start rolling them out there. Neo Geo Pocket Color Mini, because if this system is getting a mini and it does well, then I don't think there's a limit to this craze.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and especially given the nature of some of the hardware that came after that era, after the 16-bit era, a Neo Geo Mini would be just fine.
Yeah.
People would look at that.
I mean, SNK tried it.
They have had like the little but that, the implementation was not great.
It's apparently not the best.
So maybe I shouldn't say that. But the Saturn, absolutely. Like, again, hardware that didn't sell very well, but has really quality software that is very expensive to come by nowadays. Mm-hmm. How do you not?
Exactly.
Right? And the N64 Mini.
That's the one. Again, that's the one that people are dying for.
Yeah, people are really, man, I don't get it, but yeah, I get it. I get it if you're a kid and you grew up with the N64, but I was not, I was in my like late teens, early 20s by the time the N64 was, and I was really cynical about it at the time. So I have a hard time getting up for the N64 like other people do. But with that said,
I think the advantage to the N64 is that that's a console that you say, we're going to put 20 games on here, and you can make them all incredibly, that's basically every amazing game on the system. They're all probably owned by Nintendo, so it would take like 2 seconds to put them all on there.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have Mario Kart, or you have Diddy Kong Racing, you have Mario 64.
Yep.
You have Superman 64, and then you have
StarCraft 64, Glover.
Okay, stop.
But no, I agree with you. Like, I grew up with the N64, and I really liked it when I was a kid. But, outside of the fact that I don't think you'd be able to... Because the arguments I've heard for the N64, at least the one that I think holds a little bit of water, aside from like they just want to do it, is there's nothing like an N64 controller. Like even if you emulate N64, you're not going to get the same experience by playing it with any other controller outside of that N64 controller. So having something that has like a replica of that N64 controller is probably, one of the big reasons to do something like that. And
by the way, license to print money.
Oh, absolutely.
If they make a mini N64 and they just make a crap load of controllers that are identical to the originals.
Yeah.
Because the originals, like, there have been companies that have made third-party versions of the N64 controller for retro gamers, and some of them have been really good. Mm-hmm. I'm not taking anything away from some of them. I think Retrobit might have been the most recent one. God, I can't remember exactly.
I mean, and Hori's been making those modified ones forever that are now getting like really popular.
But even those modified, and that's what I'm thinking of actually, is the modified Hori one. But even those are like a 9 out of 10 as far as feel compared to the original goes. So if Nintendo released this N64 Mini and then released a whole ton of backwards compatible controllers, that would be really crazy.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, here's the thing is, and this is getting like really into the weeds, but I would wonder if you put a N64 Mini out there, if you go, because I think like the thing with the N64 a lot of the time was the variety and the sort of, not customizability, but just like the collectorship of, here's your smoke gray one, here's your ice blue one, here's your Donkey Kong Jungle Green one.
They're fantastic.
Exactly. And if you make fantastic mini N64s, get people buying like 9 or 10 of these things.
For real.
That's how you print money, Nintendo.
My God, why don't they just hire us? Honestly, like I feel like my talents are being wasted here in front of this microphone in my cold basement. You know what I mean?
No, we're slowly building up the audience. So eventually when we come to Nintendo with all these money gouging ideas for their consumers, they'll love it. Doug Bowser will welcome us in with open arms.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, as much as I enjoy talking games with you, and I could just... And we could just keep on going. Make no mistake, forever. Loyal listeners. This could easily be a 4-hour podcast. But yeah, no, we gotta wrap it up. So hey, man, thanks for taking the lemons that Ozzy gave us and making some lemonade with me.
Sweet lemonade.
And again, gentle reminder to our listeners: if you enjoy, subscribe, rate, review, 5 stars, please. And if you want to talk to us, you know what? We love hearing from you guys. Yeah. We hear from you guys quite a bit. Certainly more than when we first started, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
If you have ideas for episodes that you want to hear, pelt us with them. Treat them like peanuts and just throw them at us. Because every once in a while, there's one where we all look at it and we're like, oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Most of the time, we're like, why didn't we think of that?
That's exactly it. Most of the time we're like, wow, we're stupid. Like, why didn't we think of this? So if you have ideas for episodes, or you have anything else really that you'd like to see us talk about or do, yeah, get in touch. You can reach us on Instagram. We are at Region Free Gamers Podcast. Yep. You can talk to us on Twitter, where because of the character limit, we are at Region Free Gamer. Yep. But talk to us there. Talk to us on Instagram, and we're very happy to hear from you guys.
Yep.
So yeah, again, Arnie, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Paul.
And thanks everyone for listening. Take care.
Peace.